students, how are you doing? I hope you are doing well. So here I am again today with my fourth video, and this time I'll be talking about tenses. So far we've dealt with the articles and prepositions, and I hope that by now you come to understand the uses of articles and prepositions based on what I introduced and also based on the exercises and worksheets that I shared with you on Google Classroom and Moodle. So I hope that you have had some time to download the worksheets and do some practice. I reiterate this again. When it comes to grammar, practice is very important, okay? Theory alone will never be enough, so you need to couple theory with a lot of practice so that you can implement the rules and put them into practice in a satisfactory way, okay? I have also noticed that many of you succeeded to join the Google Classroom, and that's very good news. Why? Because Google Classroom is going to be a very flexible and very smooth and very useful platform um, that allows us to be in contact on a daily basis, and that's very great. So I take the opportunity today to invite everyone to join. And please, if you know any other classmates who are not part of the Google Classroom, please help them and show them how to join. Maybe they don't have the class code, so if you have the class code, please share it with them and let them join as soon as possible. Okay. All right. Now let's get started. Now, actions, verbs can happen in the past, in the present, or in the future, right? Now, these are the three major tenses in the English language: the present, the past, and the future. The English tenses show when something happens, right? Not just the English tenses, in fact, but all tenses in all languages show when something happens. Certain morphological changes are added to verbs to indicate their tense. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that when we conjugate a verb in a certain tense, we need to make some changes to the spelling of the verb to conjugate it in this or that tense. I'm going to explain this more by showing these examples here. Look at example number one. He enjoys listening to the sounds of nature. Now, as you see, this is the simple present, okay? The base verb or the bare infinitive is enjoy, but to conjugate it correctly in the simple present, I added s to the verb with the third personal pronoun he. So he enjoys. He enjoyed being in nature. Here again, we have the simple past tense. And to indicate that the action took place in the past, we need to add ed to the verb. He enjoyed. In the third example, he is enjoying the murmur of water. So as you see in this example here, we added ing to the verb, and we also used the auxiliary verb to be to indicate that the action is happening now or is taking place at the time of speaking. That's the present continuous or present progressive. The same applies to the third or to the fourth example. He will enjoy the atmosphere in nature. So here we are talking about an action to happen in the future, right? A future action. So that's why we use will. But here, as you see, we didn't make any changes to the verb. The verb remains as it is in its bare infinitive form. Now, in the simple future, we don't change the base verb. We keep it as it is with all the pronouns, but we should use will or shall before it. The last example, he had enjoyed living by the river. He had enjoyed living by the river. So here we are using the past perfect. Okay, that's why we used had plus the past participle of the verb enjoy, which is enjoyed. Now we are going to explain in details the structures of all the tenses. Okay, as we study the different tenses, we will simplify the use of these tenses and also their structures. So um, this is something not to worry about at this stage because we are going to study that in more details. Now, the idea that I want you to get from these examples that I've just read for you is that sometimes it is very necessary to make some morphological changes um, to the spelling of the verb to conjugate it in a certain tense. Okay? All right. Now, types of tenses. We have generally four types of tenses, as I illustrate here. We have the simple tenses, we have the continuous tenses, we have the perfect tenses, and we have the perfect continuous tenses, right? Now, what are the simple tenses? The simple, the simple tenses are the simple present, the simple past, and the simple future. The continuous tenses are the present continuous, the past continuous, and the future continuous. Note here, please, that sometimes some people call it progressive, not continuous. Okay, like for example, present continuous, they call it present progressive. In some books, you also find that continuous tenses are called progressive tenses, so it makes no difference. I mean, they are the same. Whether you find that they are called present continuous, uh, past continuous, future continuous, or present progressive, past progressive, or future progressive, that's exactly the same. I mean, there is no difference between the two designations, right? We have also perfect tenses, present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect, and we have perfect continuous tenses, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, or future perfect continuous. Again, we can call them perfect progressive tenses, right? Now, if you count the number of tenses that we have here, you'll find that there are 12 tenses in the English language, okay? Now, in English, we use two tenses to talk about the present and six tenses to talk about the past. There are several ways to talk about the future, as we are going to see in the chart that I draw here, right? So, what are the tenses that we use to talk about the present? We have only two, as I said, the simple present and the present continuous, all right? But for the past, we can use the simple past, the past continuous, the present perfect continuous, the past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. So we have six tenses to talk about an action that happened in the past. Remember, please, that present perfect and present perfect continuous, though we call them present, I mean, though the word present is there in the name, we don't use them to talk about an action in the present, but rather to indicate that something happened at a certain time in the past, okay? Now, for the future tense, or for future actions, we have different tenses and structures to use, okay? So we can use the simple present. Yes, we can use the simple present to talk about an action to take place in the future. Like, for example, if you have scheduled events or certain events to happen in the future. Scheduled events, like, for example, things that we have already planned and scheduled according to a very clear-cut timetable. So those are called scheduled events, and in this case, we use the present simple to talk about them. Let me give you an example. The class opens at 9 tomorrow. So here, the class will open tomorrow, but I use the simple present. The class opens at 9 tomorrow. Why? Because this is something that is scheduled. Let me give you another example here. The plane or the airplane takes off at 7 this afternoon. So here, I mean, we still have time to the afternoon. Maybe this is just the morning. Yet we can use the present simple to talk about this future action, okay? And we say the plane takes off at 7 this afternoon. Why? Because it is in the schedule of the plane. The flight is scheduled to leave at 7, okay? We can also use the present continuous to talk about future events, especially if you have a near future event, something to happen very shortly, right? Or arrangements. Let me give you an example here. When you say, for example, I am visiting my family tomorrow. I am visiting my family. Now here, we are using the present continuous, right? But the action is going to happen tomorrow. I am visiting my family tomorrow. So this is possible in English. You can use this tense, which is the present continuous, to talk about an action that will happen shortly in the future. And of course, we can use the future continuous, we can use the future perfect, the future perfect continuous, and will and shall for the simple future, right? And at the end, we use be going to talk about plans and intentions or predictions that are based on present evidence. Predictions that are based on present evidence. Now, let me give you an example concerning the first case, which is plans and intentions. Okay? We say, for example, Look at Muhammad. He has packed all his luggage. He is going to travel to Spain. Now, here we say he is going to travel to Spain because it is in his plans. He planned to have this travel, or he planned to take this travel. That's why we say he is going to travel. Predictions based on a present evidence. Let me give you an example here. Sarah is preparing very well these days. She's going to succeed in her exam. Sarah is preparing very well these days. She's going to succeed in her exams. Now here I predicted that Sarah is going to succeed. Why? Because I have an evidence which is very clear in front of me today, which is her very serious preparation, her hard work. Okay, so that's what we mean by predictions based on something that you can see now in the present, okay, or present evidence. So as you see, we have different tenses and different structures to use to talk about future events. And of course, as we study the future tenses, we'll explain everything in more details. Okay, this is just like an introduction to tenses, and when we study each tense individually, we will expand on all these ideas that I'm mentioning right now. Okay? Now we come to the uses of tenses. Okay, let's start first with the simple present. But before we talk about the uses, let's have a look at the structure. Okay, now as you know, when we conjugate a verb, we can use it in three forms: the affirmative form, the negative form, and the question form, or what we call interrogative form. Okay, now what is the structure of the simple present tense in the affirmative form? It's like this: we have the subjects, of course, plus base verb. What is base verb? We call it base verb or bare infinitive. It is the infinitive without to. Like, for example, the infinitive is to play. The infinitive is to play, but the base verb is play. To read, the base verb or the bare infinitive is read. Okay? Now remember, when we conjugate a verb, we don't use the to that exists in the infinitive form. Okay? We get rid of it and we use just the bare infinitive. Okay? So the affirmative form for the simple present is subject plus base verb or bare infinitive. Okay? Let me give you an example concerning the pronouns that I have here. I walk, you walk, we walk, you walk, they walk. Okay? So as you see, with these pronouns here, I, you, we, you, they, we didn't make any changes to the verb, which is the verb to walk, right? But with the third personal pronouns here, he, she, and it, we need to make some morphological changes, as we are going to see. Now, we say, for example, he walks, not he walk. So we have subjects plus verb plus s or es, depending on the verb that you have. So he walks, she walks, it walks. This is the affirmative form. Negative: subjects plus does not or doesn't plus verb. He doesn't walk, she doesn't walk, it doesn't walk, right? Interrogative form, we have does plus subject plus verb, and of course plus question mark. Does he walk? Does she walk? Does it walk? Now remember, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that sometimes it is very necessary to make some morphological changes to change the spelling of the verb to conjugate it in a certain tense. Now when it comes to the simple present, these changes happen only with these pronouns here: he, she, and it. We normally add s to the verb when used with the third person singular pronouns he, she, and it. Okay? Normally we add s. This is the principal rule that we have. Okay? But of course we have some exceptions. We have some exceptions. Now verbs that end in s, s, o, ch, sh, x, or z. Now, if you have a verb that ends in these endings here, we have 6 endings. we don't add s, we add es to the verb. Okay? Now please remember this. And I'm going to give examples, of course, here. Verbs finishing with a consonant plus y, drop y, and add ies. Okay? So these are the morphological changes that you need to do and that you need to implement. Examples. John brushes his teeth every morning. So here we added es, not s, to the verb because the verb brush ends in sh, okay, sh that we have here. So we need to add es. Anna goes to school on foot. Now we added es here because go finishes with o, right? My brother fixes my computer whenever it crashes. So here, my brother fixes, we have es added to the verb simply because the verb ends in x, right? As we have here. Crashes, again, we added es because the verb crash ends in sh, as we have here. When you pour Coke, it fizzes. So here we added es because the verb fizz ends in z, okay? She studies philosophy. He tries to be the best. Now, she studies philosophy. As you see here, the verb study ends in a consonant plus y. Study. D is a consonant and then y. But as we conjugate the verb study in the simple present with the pronoun he and she, we change y into I and add es, or we just drop y, okay, and I and add ies. And the same thing applies to the verb to try, okay? He tries, she tries, it tries. We omit the y and we add ies, okay? Now these are basically the most important morphological changes that we add to the verb as we conjugate it in the simple present, especially with he, she, and it, okay? Now, when do we use the simple present? I mean, there are different situations in which we use this tense. We use the simple present when we talk about an action that is general and does not indicate that the action is happening at the time of speaking. Okay? That's case number one. We use the simple present when we talk about habitual and repeated actions. Okay, something that a person repeats every now and then or from time to time. We use the simple present when we talk about general facts or natural laws, something that is generally accepted as being true, right? And of course, we use the simple present when we talk about scheduled actions. Now here I have examples for each of these cases. Hamid drives a taxi. Now here, when I say Hamid drives a taxi, I don't mean that he is driving a taxi now, right? But he drives a taxi as a job. So that's a general and a general action that does not indicate that the verb is taking place at the time of speaking, okay? It is a permanent situation, okay? The second one, the moon revolves around the earth. Now, the moon revolves around the earth. Here, I'm talking about a general fact or a natural law, right? Is that clear? The moon always revolves around the earth. Um, so that's a natural law and accepted as being true all the time. So we use the simple present for that. Ice melts in fire. Ice melts in fire. Now this is also general fact or a natural law. Ice will always melt in fire and has always melted in fire, and there will never come a day when ice will say no, I will not melt in fire. So this is a general truth, okay? And to talk about general truths like this, you need to use the simple present, okay? The plane takes off at 7 this afternoon. The plane takes off at 7 this afternoon. So here we have a scheduled event or a scheduled action. That's why we use the simple present. So generally, these are, the situations in which we use the simple present. Again, you can stop the video, right, and consider the examples and the rules, the situations here more attentively. Now we come to the present continuous. The present continuous is different from the simple present for the reasons that I'm going to explain now. We use the present continuous, as I mentioned before, we can also call it the present progressive. We use it to talk about an action that is in progress at the time of speaking, at the moment of speaking. Something that is progressive, something that is continuing at the time of speaking. We also use this tense to talk about the future. As I mentioned this before again, we use the present continuous to talk about the future when we want to talk about near future actions or future arrangements. The example that I gave you is I'm visiting my family tomorrow, right? Now this is a near future event and I can use the present continuous. I can use the present continuous to talk about it. Now we come to the structure, right? Um, the structure of the present continuous is this: subject plus verb to be in the present plus verb plus ing. This is the affirmative form, okay? Negative form: subjects plus verb to be in the present plus not plus verb plus ing. And the interrogative form is verb to be in the present plus subjects plus verb plus ing. Let me give you an example concerning the first structure, which is the affirmative form. He is listening to music now. He is the subject. Is the verb to be in the present. Listen is the verb. Listening, ing at the end, is the ing that we need to add to the verb. He's listening to music now. She's preparing for her exam now. They are playing tennis outside. They are playing tennis outside. So when we use this structure, I mean the present continuous, we indicate that the action we are talking about is happening right now, at the time of speaking, at the moment of speaking. Negative form: he is not playing chess now. He is not. He is the subject. Is the verb to be. Not, we add it for negation. Play, yin. He is not playing, right? Is he playing? Okay, is he playing? So in the interrogative form, we start with the verb to be in the present, and then the subject, and then the verb, and then the ing. Now, I wanted to practice a little bit. That's why I found this very good pictures here, right? That you can use to practice the present continuous. Now, let's suppose that everything happening in these pictures is taking place now. So start from 1 to 21 and tell me what the people are doing in these pictures, okay? Not just the people, because we have also things happening. For example, number 1 here. So what do you see here? We have clouds and we have rain. So we say it is raining now. It is raining now. Okay? Number 9, for example, the kid or the boy is reading now. So I want you to write sentences describing everything that is happening in these pictures, right? In the present continuous tense, of course, right? So use the affirmative, the negative, and the interrogative sentences. Let me give you an example. So here, the affirmative sentence is, it is raining now. The negative sentence, it is not raining now. And the interrogative sentence, is it raining now? Okay, so do the same with all the examples that we have here. Now we come to the spelling of verbs in the present continuous. We form the present continuous tense by adding ing to the base verb. Okay? That's very important. Sometimes, however, we double the last letter of the verb, like in the following examples. For example, you have the verb stop. If you have the verb stop, it should become stopping as you use it in the present continuous. Okay? Run, running. We double the N. Here we double the P, and here we double the N. Slap, slapping. Here again we double the P. Rub, rubbing. So here we double the B. Now, we double the last letter if the verb ends in. Please remember this, and you have to again stop the video and probably take note of this note here. We double the last consonant if you have a verb that ends in a consonant plus a stressed vowel. Okay, plus what? A stressed vowel plus consonant. For example, the verb stop, it ends with a consonant and then stressed vowel, which is O and P. That's why we double the last letter. If you have an unstressed vowel, you don't double the last letter. Like for example here, edit, edit. So we say editing, we don't double the T. Why? Because the I is not stressed. Open, open. So here we don't double the N. Why? Because E vowel is not stressed. Listen. So the same thing, we don't double the N because the E is not stressed. We only double the last letter if the vowel is stressed, okay? So this is the note that you need to remember. If the base verb ends in IE, change the IE to Y. For example, die, it becomes dying. Lie, it becomes lying. Tie, it becomes tying, right? If the base verb ends in vowel plus consonant plus E, omit the E. Examples, come. So come ends in vowel plus consonant plus E. So here we omit the E and we add ing, it becomes coming. Blame, blaming. Okay, mistake, mistaken. Okay, so again, please, if you feel that I'm a little bit going quickly, you can stop the video and take note of the rules that I cited here. Now at the end, we have exercises, right, for practice. Again, I am going to post these exercises as worksheets so that you can download them or maybe just work online and send them to me back using Google Classroom. Okay, so here, present simple or present continuous. Decide what to use in these examples here. For example, I usually to rock music. I usually listen or I usually am listening to rock music. So choose the correct one and put it in the blank. What is she doing? She to music. She listened to music or she is listening to music. Choose the correct one. My professor always is speaking or always speaks very slowly. So choose the correct one, etc., etc. And the same thing here, present simple or present continuous. Now choose, conjugate the verbs between parentheses either in the simple present or in the present continuous, depending on the context that you have. Okay? Now, please, there is something very important to mention when we talk about continuous tenses, which is stative verbs. Now, these stative verbs that we have here, they don't take the ing form. We can't use them in the progressive form. For example, like, feelings, verbs that describe feelings, like, dislike, love, hate, prefer, want, need, mind, care. You can say, for example, I'm liking um, something, okay? Because I'm liking, like is a stative verb and it doesn't take the ing. You can say I'm loving you now. Why? Because love is a stative verb. So these verbs here, they don't take the ing form. The same thing applies to these verbs here, verbs describing thoughts and opinions. Know. What are you doing? I am knowing a theory, for example. This doesn't sound correct, doesn't sound English, so please don't use ing with these verbs. Senses: feel, hear, see, smell, sound, taste, touch, and look. Possessions: belong, own, and have. Measure, coast, and others. Okay, so these verbs here, please pay attention. They don't take the ing form, right? But some of them can sometimes be dynamic and indicate action. Okay? When I say that these stative verbs don't take the ing form, I don't mean that all of them don't take the ing form and always. No, I mean sometimes when they describe a state, when we use them to indicate a state, okay, then they don't take the ing form. But if they describe an action, I mean, when they are dynamic, right? So then we can use the ing form with these verbs. All right. So now I come to the end of this video. It was a little bit very quick because I try to make it short, right? For technical reasons, I can't upload it very easily if I have a very long video. So I'm going to post the exercises that I showed you here on Google Classroom. And if you have any questions, right, please ask and comment on the video, not on YouTube, please. I mean, you can comment on YouTube, but don't ask questions on YouTube. You can ask questions using Google Classroom or Moodle, okay? But Google Classroom is more flexible and allows better communication, right? All right, so thank you very much for following, and see you in another video. Goodbye.